I am super excited for today's guest, and I know you will too. This time, I know the guest really well. Not only have he's helped me in my business, but he's actually been part of Optimize Your ADHD Brain. And so I know him on a really personal level. And so this is going to be a super, super fun conversation. Today we've got Dustin Reichmann, a serial entrepreneur and the founder of Seven Figure Leap. I am so excited to be speaking with you, Dustin. Thank you so, so much for being here. You want to start by taking us back to your childhood. Tell us what it was like being you as a kid, and have any of those experiences affected you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I didn't probably hear the word entrepreneur till like college. So I had very blue collar parents. My dad was in and out of our lives. He had a lot of issues with alcohol and he was abusive. And while I had some brothers, they were much older than me. And so I spent most of my childhood kind of isolated, kind of a loner, kind of doing my own thing, going out in nature in the woods. But I was always very good at school. I was always a straight A student and always had that label on me, like Dustin's a smart kid. And so I think that pulled me in the direction of my first career, which was engineering. And engineering, as we can unpack or not unpack, eventually through a series of adventures led me to entrepreneurship. But yeah, I had no idea going out of high school into college that I'd ever own my own business.
You never like did anything business, nothing of that sort. Was there any sort of like personality traits or any sort of like experiences that you're like, oh, that taught me a lot for where I am today?
Very much appreciate the clarifying question. So I never knew entrepreneurship was a thing, and I didn't ever see the possibility of being a business owner being a thing because of I just had a very impoverished mindset. We grew up very poor. However, when you ask it that way, yeah, like as a kid, my mom would have yard sales and I would create like these packets of baseball cards, and I had techniques to get people like basically have grandma think, oh, my grandson would love this, and I would sell like my common cards that were kind of worthless. And so I did that, and then my grandma, I'd spend every Sunday with my grandma's house, and she would take us out in the country, and we'd collect aluminum cans from the side of the road that then I could redeem for money. And so I was always drawn to making money and being creative. And so, yes, I had that entrepreneurial zest, and I just didn't know what to call it, and I didn't have a true outlet for it until way into my adult life.
I love how your entrepreneurial zest came out in such a marketer sort of way of like packing your the baseball cards for them in that way.
Who's my
I'm
target
like,
market? The grandma, right? Yeah. So yeah.
yeah. No wonder why you're like specializing in marketing today, you know? It's in you, it's in you. Okay, and I know, like I said, you've been engineer. There's been like a lot of things that happened in that sort. If you were to share with us like one or two highlights, what were some of the key moments that happened in between you going from a 9 to 5 to actually building your business or owning it
Yeah, so
full time?
I was an engineer for a total of 15 years, but about 7, 8 years into my career, I had two things happen at once. At least in my mind, they happened at once. My wife and I got pulled into marriage ministry, and so we started doing teaching around that. And I started to be really motivated around this idea that I had something to say and teach and experiences to share. And then I read this book by Dan Miller called No More Dreaded Mondays. And the theme of the book was basically like you can have a professional job and a creative outlet. And so I was like, you know what? I can do this. And so I created my very first website in 2009 for married couples, and I ended up writing a book and doing speaking. So that was always the side hustle, but it definitely was a huge moment. And like I had my own business while also being an engineer for 8 years after that. And then I'd say the other big moment was about 6 years after that. I That had become a business, and I got really into digital marketing, and I started really
You
kind of
made like
creating.
money from it, like actual money
Yeah,
from it.
yeah, we had digital
Yeah.
products and membership sites selling books. It was a pretty substantial side hustle, and I just had a few other side hustles too. Um, but in 2015 is when I really started taking serious the idea of digital marketing as like a skill set. And so I piecemealed everything together, but I started like investing in education. I took vacation time from engineering to go to events about digital marketing. And so in 2015, I was at Digital Marketer, a company that was doing an event, and in that room, I was like, you know what? I want to do this full time. So that was kind of more of my decisive point. However, I was the sole breadwinner of my family, 3 kids, so it wasn't like I could go home and just quit my job. But it put me in process so that by 2017, I was able to quit my job and got into basically doing marketing consulting. So it was kind of a hodgepodge business that I had built. I had all kinds of different clients in all different industries doing all different marketing. In hindsight, that was very good for me and it kind of fit my personality at the time. And yeah, and then I formed a partnership after that, which led me into getting into different marketing channels, including podcast guesting, which is my focus today. So it's sort of one thing led to another, and I am where I am today through all these things that make sense and link to each other in hindsight. But there's no way I could have predicted them looking forward.
Right? Like if only we could look back at life and we're like, hmm. We just have to remember it when we're actually going through it, when during the tough moments and we're like, why is this happening? But like in the end, it's a good story.
Yeah, 'cause yeah, like one of my biggest moments came in COVID. You know, like a lot of us have our COVID stories, and what felt like I lost 80% of my revenue. The company I was the head of sales and marketing for was trade show based. I'm literally driving to a trade show, and it's like it's canceled, and all your clients who are local businesses are shut down, so they don't need marketing anymore. And so it really created despair and chaos. And it was like a very scary time, but that forced me to think of a different way to market, which got me onto my first podcast, which 4 years later is like the thing I'm known for now. So it's pretty remarkable, yeah, to connect those dots in the rearview mirror.
What was the hardest part during that COVID time period?
I think uncertainty. It was like I had this kind of again like kind of a random business. I had not random business, but I was serving random clientele, and many of which were local. So I'm talking like a dentist, a restaurant, a real estate broker, like very varied. And I was growing this company, Fire Creek Snacks, which we were doing through the means of like toe-to-toe sampling and trade shows, which was working very well. Like I went to a dozen trade shows in 2019 and got very good at selling on my feet that way. And that was our whole game plan for 2020. And we were on our third trade show of the year in March, and the whole thing was no longer available. And like I said, so there's so much uncertainty. And then I had 3 kids, all trying to do Zoom at home, and it was just like it was kind of chaos, uncertainty, and we had no idea at that time like if and when any of this stuff's going to come back or when it's going to open up. And I had sort of stumbled into selling marketing just through literally like being in my dentist chair and being like, "Hey, I had some ideas for you. Can we meet?" And he's like, "Sure." And then he'd hire me. "Hey, I love this restaurant. Like, I had some ideas," and that's how I sold. And so that was a gift, but at the same time, it was like I couldn't like the old tools didn't work anymore because it was a whole different playing field.
Wow, it's like a lot to learn. And I
Yes,
think that's part of the business. Not ways do we have COVID, thank God.
right.
But there's like we're in like new situations where like what worked until now is not going to work now, and now we need to approach it with a very different mindset.
Yeah, and I think now we're kind of getting into that with AI, right? Like it's going to change a lot of things. It's shaking up a lot of our industries and the ways that we market and the way that we create. And, we'll always have those, right? We'll always have the next thing that requires us to be adaptable to change. And I think with the right mindset, that can be exciting as a creator because you know that you're going to continue to get new challenges to your thinking and yeah, just more creative outlets because the world's not a static place.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things that we like undermine most as humans, we are actually very adaptable. We can be resilient and like grow that really well. But let's go back to a year ago. Tell us what your business looked like. Tell us what you were doing, but also give us a little bit of like behind the scenes, like how are you operating and how are you running the business?
A year ago, I was running cohorts of a program I called the Podcast Profits Accelerator. So ST was in one, so she
Yes.
knows about what it's about. But it's using podcast guesting as a marketing channel, and it does a lot of other things for your business. But basically, a 90-day program to accelerate the growth of your business through podcast guesting. And so I was running these cohorts every quarter and doing 100% of everything by myself. Great margins, but very stressful. And I think what I would describe a year ago, that I think specifically like a year ago, heading into the summer, and like, man, I'd like to have some more freedom. I wasn't even actually running a group, but I still felt really overwhelmed. And I think the thing I felt so overwhelmed by was what I described as like open loops. I had all these unresolved questions and projects and incomplete systems. And so again, always sold out every group, great at delivering, I think, and the feedback that I get, like
You think, do you
very
need a
good at like
reminder?
doing the program, delivering the program. But I also did all the selling, all the marketing, all the fulfillment, all the administrative stuff, all the financials. And it's like at the same moment, I felt very grateful. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm operating at this level. Like, this is a high ticket program and people love it. And I'm getting referrals and all that good stuff. Yet I'm feeling really tired and burnt out. And like, this is overwhelming. And I felt stress from that.
How do you see it like affecting your like family life or affecting other areas? Because even though you had a successful business, all of a sudden you weren't coming from the family where didn't go on vacation, right? Like you had the money, but there was other sort of challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely worked a lot of late nights, and I did some positive things in response to it, and creating some boundaries and some constraints. I can't remember exactly when these started to enter the fold. I think it was second quarter ish, heading into the summer last year, that I committed with my, talking to my wife and our kids. It's like, what if we commit to doing a quarterly family trip? In some cases, that would be a big trip. In many cases, it's just kind of a weekend or a local trip. But we have something always on the calendar to look forward to as a family and an experience. And that created, like, again, like boundaries. It started to push me a little bit to be like, well, what if I'm not available for a week? What if I am like truly on vacation and there's a group running? And so started to open up new perspectives for me that it took a while, but and we can talk about how you and I work together in the time frames, but it, when I look back a year, my life is substantially different and better. And I'm actually looking now and building a scalable, bigger version of this business that doesn't depend on me. And I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of that right now. So I've invited new stress, but it's like a healthy creative stress. It's like I can actually do something better now. And so, yeah, I've unlocked a lot of things over the past year. And I'm very, very happy about it.
Yeah, so like we said, right, we're always in new situations and we have new challenges, but we're able to go through them. You want to share with us some of the things that have changed over this past year to really help you accelerate and get to this point where it's not dependent on you anymore.
Yeah, it's many things. I think from a personal standpoint, like I'm no longer only the only person thinking about and doing things in this business. But even if I was, because only, I don't know, 6 months ago, kind of the midpoint in this journey, it was still just me. However, I did have some virtual assistant support, some administrative support. I had systems in place, which is a big deal. And then in the most recent 6 months, I started to actually hire some team members. I've got big plans for what I'm going to do in the second half of this year. So it's kind of hard for me to like put a pin in this moment in time because I feel like I'm in another transition, another 10x leap in my business. But yeah, but thinking about now compared to this time last year, like I have a project management system, I have a CRM for tracking client and relationships, whereas before all that was just in my head or on a scattering of post-it notes and papers all over my desk. And so yeah, I suffered a lot from overwhelm, procrastination, and decision. And again, it's like I describe it as like a hum in my brain of like background noise. Like, oh, there's so many things in there that my capacity to think and be creative was reduced because I just had like a base level of stress, I guess you could say, and like unresolved tension in my day-to-day being. And I've had more of that recently because I've challenged myself in new ways, but still way better than a year ago. And I'm choosing it now. So it feels way healthier. Like it's like, yeah, like I'm in a period of growth. Like I'm cool with that. But I've also changed my schedules. Like I'm not running a cohort right now. As we talk next week, I'm taking 2 weeks completely off to go to Italy with my wife. These things would not have been possible a year ago.
Yeah, well, I always like to say, or you're exactly a really good example of it. It's like life is always going to throw challenges at us. You can either have them come to you, or you are going to put yourself in that situation where you're making yourself grow, right? And you're
Yeah.
putting yourself in that situation where you grow. However, because you've worked on your thinking skills, right, and you've improved cognitive functions, you now have your brain literally has the capacity to deal with bigger challenges. Before, little small things would have you've been able to deal with it, but like it would have used so much more mental energy that your brain would have a much harder time thinking in this 10x sort of way.
Yeah. And I think, me, ST knows me. I'm a very relational person. I'm likely stemming from my childhood of isolation. Love community. I love building communities. And I just love to relate to people and learn about them. And the first quarter of this year, so looking back, 4 to 6 months ago, I just started to be able to see things differently. And I don't know, I'm sure it came out in part from the work that we did and be able to categorize things more clearly and just be more decisive, I think, about things. But I started to meet a series of people who were talking about what they're up to. They started asking me some really key questions like, hey, have people who would thrive in your program, but like, how many referrals can we send you before your whole thing breaks? I'm like, well, I'm actually full for the next 6 months. Like, none. Like, and that's not really a good answer for a business owner. So I started to think differently. Like, what would this look like if I needed to be able to bring in 100 clients at once? Right. So I've been working in groups of 12 to 15, one at a time in these, through 3 month sprints. And so just started reimagining things. And I know this is a YouTube show, so I'll say also, and like being around some other people and thinking about it. Like, I was at a conference, actually the same conference ST and I met at a year earlier, Podfest, and then like this napkin plan developed of like, this is what your business model could be. And I was like, that's it. So I've been building that, but like that just happened. I couldn't even imagine this model 6 months ago. And now it's almost a reality. Like, by next month, it'll be ready and running in this new way. That's super exciting to me because I think that's exciting. And the fact that we were able to do it, I think we'll see what the clients say in 6 months. But in my opinion, I think we've been able to pull this off while keeping the soul of the program, which has always been my fear is like, well, if it's not me doing everything, then it's not me and it loses the personality and it loses the energy that comes with that. But I think we've been able to be creative about that and unlock something really special.
Having gone through the program and also knowing what this new program looks like, I'm actually really excited for this new program because I think it will help people and it will fill some of the little minor gaps that were in the other program are now going to be solved in this new program. So, do you want to share with us what that program is and where people can connect with you and learn more about you if they want to get into it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it's still the Podcast Profits Accelerator. It's still actually the same core promise, which is adding a six-figure marketing channel to your business through podcast guesting. It's still actually cohort based. So it's still run through like a mastermind format. So on the surface, from the people on the outside, it actually is the same program. However, it's now centered on community. We're on a really great platform where lots of the alumni and other people in my community can speak into this group. I've enrolled other people in my vision. So I've got people certified in what I do. So now I've got coaches and mastermind leaders who can run these without me, but I'm still also heavily involved. And there's still elements of it that I probably will never let go of, like our kickoff calls and our culminating event. And there's things like that I'm very excited about. So for anyone listening, I mean, that's really what it still is. The difference is you can now on a monthly basis enroll instead of waiting 4 months, sometimes for the next thing to open up and it's sold out. There's more availability. It's a much better platform. It's a much better community based version. And you actually get not just my expertise, I'm very involved, but you get the expertise of many amazing experts and people with really special skill sets. And you're like immersed into a community of over 100 graduates of this program, including ST. So way more valuable because of the alumni network that you get plugged into from the get-go, while it still has the ROI guarantee and all the things that have made it successfully sold in the past. So yeah, that's what we do. And my brand is Seven Figure Leap and sevenfigureleap.com. The homepage is really dedicated to this program. If people want to go see what it's really about, you can book a call with us. And um, we are very committed to like curation. So we always require a call, not only to make sure it's a great fit for you, because I do provide an ROI guarantee. So I got to make sure like we can back that up with each individual, but also make sure you're a good fit for the group that you'll be in, because the soul of this program is the community. And so we're very protective of that. I want to make sure mission driven, ambitious, cool people are in it. So yeah, if you like ST's energy, I think you would like being involved in this kind of program.
The one thing people, like everyone says of going through Dustin's program is like, Dustin just attracts the best people. So if you think you're an awesome person, then maybe he'll let you in. Final question for us. What do you wish most ADHD business owners knew?
They actually have way more control over their situation and their ability to think and process things than maybe society or the culture would tell them. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD. I have been around many people that are. My wife's actually a special ed teacher, so I know a lot of families with different needs, including ADHD, and our son is diagnosed with ADHD. So I know a lot about what it's like sometimes there's a stigma around it, or there's just like hope, like powerlessness, right? But it's not that at all. Like, I worked with ST in her program and she showed me like, oh, you're dealing with procrastination. Like, this is the thinking skill you need to work on. And there's like a process and exercises we can do together to fix it or like improve it. Right. And that was like life changing and eye opening. It's like, oh, it's not like a disability I have to just like live with the rest of my life. It's no, it's my brain and it can actually be improved. And so that'd be my huge message for people is be encouraged, talk to ST, talk to other experts, and don't just settle for what you feel like your kind of broken brain is. Like, no, you can actually operate at such a higher level than you probably realize in this moment. You just need the right resources and the right people in your court.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dustin. This was fun.
This was fun. Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you.
inviting me on. Let me be part of your world. I love having you over in my world as well. So, very excited to be connected and be able to open up and share a little bit about my story with your audience.
Yes, thank you.